do so. Again, we are going to be briefed on the Language Committee as well as the Cultural Commission. Now, we do understand, I have discussed with member Gillian Bosman, who will be chairing from there onwards. Members, I sincerely trust that you find that in order.
It's in order, Chair.
Thank you so much.
Objection.
Member, Member Marais,
No,
is that
Mr.
an objection to
Pastor.
you needing coffee?
Chair, can you
Um,
please explain?
Chair, I just want to note that I see the officials also don't consider this committee important enough to cancel any of their other commitments. This is a very bad reflection on the status of this committee. That officials can just say, we're not coming, we got something else on, and then we as a committee are supposed to just accept it. I think that we're taking it too lightly. The officials can just decide, I'm going to the hairdresser, or I'm going here, or I'm going to my attending. Then what's going to happen is...
but before that, Member Bosman, your hand is up.
Thank you, Chairperson, and once again, good morning, colleagues. Chair, I would also like to ask, where are the rest of the senior leadership in this department, as well as the Minister? If I'm correct, I know we lost our HOD to the WCED, but there must be more than just Ms. Moleki in this department. And I know we've met Ms. Moleki before, and she always comes, but they must...
Only having Ms. Moleki here, I don't think it's appropriate, and I'm not sure what we will be achieving with having only one person. In case we are having questions that are relating in depth, how are we going to handle it? Will it be a fruitful exercise? I just think we should first deal with that before we move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. That's noted. Mr. Wasim, are you ready for us?
Thank you, Chairperson. The invite was sent on the 21st of May. The MEC's office had indicated that I think she has an appointment in Mossel Bay, and the HOD also indicated that he might not be able to make it. I see the chairperson of the Language Committee has entered the meeting. Traditionally, these meetings, the meetings on the entities to inform the committee of the roles of the entities, have not been attended by the full spectrum of the SMT, and it would normally be the director or chief director for that directorate to explain to the committee the roles of these two entities. So it's just always sort of been like that, in that sense, where the persons who have represented the department were able to respond to all the committee's questions. So the invitation was specifically for a briefing on these two entities for the committee's preparation for the shortlisting. I'm not sure that assists with perhaps why the full spectrum of the SMT is
representing the legislation. Are we asking people, begging them to appear before us, or can we demand they appear before us? Can they refuse to appear before us? We've got to settle this issue. Can officials decide, I'm going out, I'm not going there? Have they got that right in terms of the rules? Or if we gave them ample time to appear before us, is it incumbent on them to appear here? I mean, are we just going to take this lightly?
Member Marais, we are definitely, I've noted the concerns and I can even understand the tone. So I definitely take note of those concerns. And in terms of the rules, yes, we do invite officials, we do invite the ministry, but we do have the powers to also summon any person, even outside of the Western Cape. Highly appreciate if we are then able to move ahead and receive the briefing so that we are then able to, once we deliberate, to discuss further what action we are taking as a committee. But I'm definitely open to writing to the minister as well as the HOD in this regard. Member Botha, I see your hand.
Chair, I just want to say that I support your proposal.
baie dankie, Member Botha. Member Mare, I trust that that covered your input. So thank you, members. I appreciate the robust nature that we do engage, but also in the view of moving forward, I will now hand over directly to Ms. Moluleki. Member Mare, are you able to lower your hand at this time?
Good morning again, members. Chairperson, just to inform you that the chairperson for the Language Committee, Ms. Mbezi, has joined, and the deputy chairperson, Mr. Jama, for the Western Cape Cultural Commission has also joined. So I'm not sure to do that overview.
Into account the latest developments in terms of the new languages that are also used in the province, including Sesotho, Swahili, in terms of the capacity of the committee. Of course, the committee, as of last year, 2019, assumed the responsibility of being an accounting authority on its own, a responsibility that was shifted away from the department. And so we are still in transition as a committee to be able to fully assume that responsibility, which means that in preparation for the new set of members after the expiration of the term of the current members, there will need to be emphasis in preparation, the indictment, and the empowerment of those members to be able to fit into that role of discharging the responsibility of being an accounting authority, which has got a lot of responsibilities, administration, to be able to comply with the timelines in terms of the budget, the annual performance plan. Some of these processes may be complex to individuals who do not have prior exposure to. We still need to find traction. So I mentioned this also to say it is an area that the committee, the language committee, needs to be resourced and supported in order to be able to play a proactive role in terms of complementing what PENSAL does in this province, because you find now that there are some gaps in the way in which the monitoring of the implementation of the languages is happening in the Western Cape. The PENSLAB might think that the language committee is doing this. The language committee might think that the PENSLAB is going to do this. And we find that there are gaps, and it doesn't serve well the people of the province when there are areas that are overlooked. And so even in terms of the budget allocation and other form of resources, that is what one would recommend. Otherwise, in terms of what we had expected by way of the amendment of the act, it is something that we still would take a cue from the legislature on, because we were under the impression that there was a multi-phase process that was going to be introduced to amend those areas that were just outdated, but also to, in another phase, introduce new amendments that will put the committee on par with regard to the requirements and the challenges that we are faced with. But as I say, it's something that would take a cue from the committee and also just requesting a proactive interaction to then say, if in preparing the program for the year for the committee, where it includes the language committee issues, to be informed in advance so that we can be able to participate proactively. So I will stop.
For the reference committee, this is winter season time now, so the initiation is progressing on very well. There have not been any hiccups.
the Western Cape Cultural Commission and Cultural Councils Act, and that is also the act which fully governs the operations, the functions, and the mandate of the Cultural Commission. The newly act of the Traditional and Traditional Khoi and San Leadership Act, the Promotion of the Justice Act, the Access for Information Act, our POPI Act, and also the customary initiated also very newly. They erect, equip, maintain, or after any building or structure on the movable property refer as in subsection 1B of the Cultural Commission and Councils Act. They may also receive movable or immovable property as a gift, bequest, or in a trust and control and use and manage or otherwise deal with its subject to the condition of the donation, bequest, or trust, which are consistent with the aims of the Cultural Commission. And as the committee are aware, that the Cultural Commission has 7 facilities under the management. The other powers is all besides the powers for the Commission that I just mentioned now, is that the Commission may give assistance with its available resources to a cultural council or councils as established under this Act. They may also subsidize culturally related projects, research and conferences determined by the provincial minister and for which a cultural council or council have applied. So currently, all the cultural councils that we fund apply for funding, we assess it, and on the basis of that, we will then render support. They may also promote and coordinate national and international intercultural, preserve, promote, and develop culture. In addition, the Cultural Commission is entitled to establish, compile, and maintain databases of organizations, institutions, and equipment, and facilitate all governance-related matters in terms of Section 49 and 57 of the PFMA. In terms of the establishment and composition of the Cultural Commission, the Cultural Commission will consist of not fewer than 10 members and not more than 14 members. And currently, just to mention that there are 14 members in the Commission at present. None of the members that is appointed to the Commission will be full-time members. And the number that will be Section 2 of the Western Cape Cultural Commission and Cultural Councils Act for a period of 3 years, whereby the Standing Committee will then receive instructions of our provincial minister to invite the general public to nominate persons for appointment as members of the Western Cape Cultural Committee. The Standing Committee will then compile a short list of 20 candidates and submit that short list to the Provincial Minister for Cultural Affairs and Sport. The Provincial Minister will then appoint members to the Cultural Commission from the shortlist provided by to the committee. That the accounting authority function now resides by the public entity, and therefore the members of the public of the commission that will be appointed should at least be acquainted with the legislation related to the public entities, should be acquainted or have an understanding of governance. They should at least have an understanding, because they are, and the reason for that is that they need to oversee the entire governance for the public entity, which include both financial and risk management. They would also have to be able to look at the effective and efficient management of the public entity as prescribed in section 38(1)J in the PFMA. So the members, apart from just being a South African citizen and being able to speak the two of the three official languages, should at least also have the added competencies and skills to be able to effectively manage the public entity. Thank you, members, and it's open for questions now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moleleki. Colleagues, I'm now going to ask, as well as the input delivered by the
What is the Cultural Commission done about the removal of statues, which to some cultural groups must be of great importance and for others not? Have they done anything at all, or have they acted as lopsided as not attending meetings of this committee? I'd like to have a straightforward answer. What has the Cultural Commission done to protect Afrikaans and to protect places and monuments of cultural importance to certain minority groups?
Thank you, Member Murray. Member Barnes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you to Ms. Moleleki for the presentation. Let me start where Member Murray has left off. I think one would have really wanted to see, understanding they have come to the end of their term, this commission, one would have loved to see what have they done for the past 3 years, which can be a highlight for us, and also in moving forward, where we can also, when we do our recommendation, we would know what we are looking at in appointing over. One would have loved to have such a presentation as well. But nevertheless, I think my first question
is Member Porter. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'd just like to ask Ms. Moleleki just to take us through the handover process, please, from one commission to the next one.
Thank you very much, members. Ms. Moleleki, I'll hand over to you to answer those questions posed by the members.
I've just put on my camera for a while. I forgot to put it on. Sorry, Chairperson. I will answer most of the question, 99% of the questions, and ask Ms. Jeevan to answer the questions on the aspect of arts and human sciences question that was asked. Around the first question that Honorable Marie asked is edited section of our department. We have the geographical names committee, and they are focusing on the renaming of names, as well as offensive names, as well as the removal or erection of monuments and memorials. So those are the questions in terms of Honorable Marie. For Honorable Barnes, in terms of the governance issues, it is recommended that the members have an understanding of of governance, as the responsibilities that is now put on the Commission is surrounded by the government governance requirement. For argument's sake, that in the past, I was the accounting authority and I would oversee all of those aspects, the financial aspect, the risk management aspect, ensure that there's effective and efficient management. That now resides by the committee. And because the committee doesn't have, like other public entities, have full-time members, that comes with that skill and competency, it is then recommended that if there should be members, that those members should then be considered, have to take the responsibility of the accounting authority. We would then put greater focus on that aspect of their responsibility. I hope that I've answered all the questions, and then I will ask Ms. Jeevan to do the question around the visual arts and the human sciences aspect. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good
morning, and thank
you. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Just give a brief synopsis of it. The aims of the Commission, as was articulated by Ms. Mololeki, is to preserve and promote and develop culture. And this is done in various ways. Through the funding of cultural councils, right? The cultural councils, the activities that they are funded are largely using the arts to convey to communities as well as younger, the youth, the traditions, as well as share their dance, music, and poetry, which often the younger generations are not very au fait with. Also, we have in the past had certain programs. For example, if I just think off the top of my head, Initiation was done in collaboration with a theatre, where a production called Passage at the time was presented on stage as to make people more aware and understand, the whole concept of initiation. Further afield, in terms how the Commission has also equipped some of its facilities with the infrastructure needed so that organizations and communities using these facilities could use the arts as a way of conveying messages of the different cultures, as well as increasing social interaction. So it's done at various levels. We also encourage interaction amongst cultural councils, and members attend some of these events of these cultural councils. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jeevan.
Thank you very much to both Ms. Jeevan as well as Ms. Mololeki. Member Murray, I see your hand. I'd like to get an indication if there are any other members who would like to ask a question as well. And then also, just to alert members, for your reference, we have uploaded the annual reports of the Western Cape Cultural Commission onto the Microsoft Teams platform. But this is the same annual report that members get and that we discussed last year. But it is there for ease of reference in all 3 languages. And I will just post the link in the chat box. But for members of the public who would like to access the annual report of that falls within the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sports, they can do so on the Western Cape Government website. Member Murray, you may go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chair Bosman. My question was not answered. We must be careful how we answer questions. If landed here or not, it's my history. Others says, do away with Van Riebeeck because we didn't invite him. Now, how do we get a balance here? What are you doing to prevent dominant cultures from destroying minority? Dis my besitreg. Ek praat uit taal. Maar die kommissie, ek wil weet, wat het julle gedoen om Afrikaans te beskerm op Stellenbosch en op UWK campuses?
Baie dankie agbare Maree vir daai twee vrae. Ek sal oorgie aan mevrou Maleleki om daai vrae te antwoord. En ek sien nie enige ander
Our responses in Afrikaans will be getting also translation in Xhosa because we have not been complaining. We are forced here to speak English, which is also not our mother language. Will we be accommodated because we've made at least attempts to speak Afrikaans? That is also not our home language. How are we going to be accommodated? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Member Barnes, I just want to check with the procedural officer. Mr. Matthews, do we have the parliamentary translation service on this platform today?
Chairperson, it was not requested ahead of time, unless the committee wants to have this as a standing request, and then unfortunately not at this moment, but if they want this as
members, I want to please remind you of the rules of order that we use to conduct meetings. If you would like to raise a point of order, please raise your hand or use the chat function. I'm not going to entertain any further hands on this issue, but I'm going to ask Member Ms. Maleleki to continue in a language that she is comfortable with, and we can make the necessary arrangements at a later stage to either translate that audio into the language that members requested in, or we can assist members with the translation. Ms. Maleleki, Nkosi kakhulu for your patience. Please continue.
Yeah. Thank you, Chairperson. I would start off by saying I will attempt to answer the questions around the preservation and promotion of languages. I would also ask the Deputy Chairperson, Mr. Jama, to just speak to that aspect pertaining to the tertiary institutions referred to by Honorable Marie. In terms of, I need to start off by saying, in terms of the mandate and role of the Commission, as per the Cultural Commission and Cultural Councils Act, advise the Minister of Cultural Affairs and Sport on matters pertaining to culture for the Cultural Commission and language for the Language Committee. In terms of that would that role, taking that role into account, we also take into account that the committee only meets 4 times a year, and then they have subcommittees which also meet 4 times. So it's 8 times a year that they meet. But however, they do focus on the preservation of culture, which include language as well. And within that, we then execute it within the department. And if you look at the department's activities and annual report, we would see that we have both strived to preserve all 3 official languages in our province through the language unit within our department. In terms of the tertiary level question, I would ask Mr. Jama if he wants to say any something in terms of the preservation and the promotion, and also the work that we are doing at those institutions. Please, Mr. Jama.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jane. Bad donkey. But I must say that I appreciate that we have apologized, but I think it was very courteous and fair of you. I think, well, let me just start by addressing this recent kind of debate that we're having now. I think it is very, very healthy, because it actually indicates underlying problems in our society, because then it means therefore that the question of multilingualism is very expedient. That is why I would talk, for instance, from the University of the Western Cape, that we have worked very closely with the department on these matters. I think we started with a big colloquium that we had, which was a kind of collaboration between the Xhosa department and the Afrikaans department at UWC, whose aim was to keep us having a conversation in our own languages, and to actually say that the dominance of English is not necessarily the standard. So we do really work on building these relationships. And for the past 2 years, we have also invited in our colloquiums and having a joint international mother tongue collaboration with Afrikaans and Xhosa, and we have now included the Khoisan languages and Kiswahili as well. And this actually has culminated in making application to the university to start, hopefully, in the next semester with starting with short courses on Khoisan and Kiswahili, and to develop those languages into fully fledged university courses. Because we have identified the use of language as a very important tool for creating social cohesion amongst our communities. In fact, if I may add that although English, Afrikaans, and Xhosa are official languages in the Western Cape, if one goes to, in fact, from the Cape Metro, Strand, Paarl, Worcester to Dorrance, one finds that there is a contingent of Sotho speakers as well. So we are also discussing the possibility also of organizing these courses, because our main aim is to have ourselves communicating in our languages. And for instance, now that we're teaching, for instance, this course to the medium of Afrikaans, we want to create an app where one can be able to learn Afrikaans through the medium of Xhosa, or learn Xhosa through the medium of Afrikaans. So in that way, we're able to bring all these languages together. So we have a serious programs, therefore, whose aim is to bring more synergy amongst our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that input, Mr. Jama. Colleagues, I'm now going to ask that Ms. Mololeki move on to the next presentation.
Thank you, Chairperson. The next one presentation is for the nomination procedure for the new Western Cape Language Committee members that commence as from the 1st of November 2021. In terms of the legislation that has a direct impact on the operations of, sorry, I'm running now. This presentation, Chairperson, will focus on the legislative framework. It would look at the criteria for nominations. It would look at the consideration for language representation, the responsibilities and obligation of the provincial minister, the obligations of members that will be on the Western Cape Language Committee and their powers and duties. It will take more or less the same approach as the previous presentation that I've just done for the Western Cape Cultural Commission. In terms of the overarching legislation that relates directly to the functions and operations of the Western Cape Language Committee is our constitution of the country, the constitution of the Western Cape Language Committee, the constitution of the Western Cape Province. Now, with the constitution of the Republic, it refers to the 11 official languages. The constitution of the Western Cape Province refers to the 3 official languages, being Xhosa, Afrikaans, and English, and also the preservation and development of previously diminishing and marginalized languages, including sign language. The PFMA as a direct impact because of the management aspect of the Western Cape Language Committee, our National Treasury and Provincial Treasury regulations, and also the handbook for the appointment of persons to boards of state entities, and that is from the Department of Public Works, Department of Public Service and Administration. The other acts, the POPIA, the PAJA and PAYA, also relates to the function of the Language Committee. The criteria for nominations of the Language Committee is that the Standing Committee must invite members of the public to nominate persons to serve on the Western Cape Language Committee and province, and the Standing Committee must nominate 20 names for appointment to the Provincial Minister of Cultural Affairs and Sport. Now, the official languages of our province are Afrikaans, English, and Xhosa. And according to, just to look at the demographics, now according to the latest census, the census of 2011, and we know census are taken every 10 years, that the latest census has reflected the following demographics, that we have 49.7% of persons in our province that speak Afrikaans. We have 24.7% of persons that speak isiXhosa, and 20.2% of persons that speak English within our province. If we look at the household surveys that is done every second year, they also now have included individuals that use sign language as a mode of communication. And then based on these statistics, just as a baseline, the committee amongst the 7 members that will, amongst the 11 members, where's my memory today? Amongst the 11 members that the committee will constitute of, 4 of those members must be Afrikaans speaking or promote and develop and preserve Afrikaans. 3 of those members must in particularly focus on isiXhosa. 2 on the promotion, preservation and development of English, and then 1 on sign language, and mostly those members come from the deaf community, and then 1 in previously marginalized indigenous languages, and for our province it would be predominantly the Khoi language and at times San as well. Then in terms of the responsibilities and obligations of the minister will appoint 11 members to the new Western Cape Language Committee for a period of 3 years. None of those members may be full-time members. Members must be representative of the users of the 3 official languages. All members must have proven competencies in at least 2 of the 3 official languages, of which 1 member must represent the previously marginalized indigenous languages. And then if a vacancy arises, the same as for the Cultural Commission, the minister will then consult with the standing committee and will use the short list that was presented to the minister at the time, take a name from that short list, and then appoint the person to the committee. The Western Cape Language Committee must also appoint a chairperson and deputy chairperson at its first meeting, and at all the meetings, we then expect from the members to declare any interest in any projects, programs that they may or envisage to be involved in whether it's the department or the Cultural Commission, and at all of the meetings, should a conflict arise, they must recuse themselves. Just to say that we also ask from both entities that they sign a declaration of interest form. Then the committee members must reveal any other conflict of interest at any time. So whether if they're not revealing it at their first meeting, but at each meeting we ask them to reveal the conflict of interest, and committees must also determine their own internal arrangement. For argument's sake, with the entities, we have the plenary committees, and then we also have subcommittees, and in that subcommittees, they will then focus on particular aspect pertaining to language. Then the powers and duties of the Western Cape Language Committee as prescribed in the Act. It is to monitor the use of Afrikaans, English, and isiXhosa by the Western Cape Government departments, make recommendations to the provincial minister and the provincial parliament on proposed or existing legislation, practice, and policies dealing directly or indirectly with language in the Western Cape. They must also actively promote the principle of multilingualism, promote the development of previously marginalized indigenous languages, and advise the provincial minister and the Western Cape Cultural Commission on language matters pertaining to our province, as well as advise PANSAP on language matters pertaining to our province. Again, before I end, is to say the same for the Language Committee. The Language Committee is now the accounting authority of the public entity, and they are now responsible for the full operations of the public entities, although the administrative support is done by the officials within the language subdirectorate of the Department of Cultural Affairs, but they will be responsible for the governance aspect of the Western Cape Language Committee. Chairperson, thank you. It brings me to the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much for getting us through that. Members, I'm now going to ask if you have any questions on the functions and the appointment process of the Western Cape Language Committee. I see a hand of someone called Khalil. I'm not sure who that is. Please identify yourself. And then I also see
Proposed or existing legislation, practice and policy dealing directly or indirectly with language in the Western Cape. Now that is a mouthful. I'm very pleased to see that is part of your powers and functions. And I want to ask this committee, you've heard the debate here today in the standing committee where I am prevented from speaking Afrikaans because English is said to be dominant. But you gave figures to show that in the Western Cape, 49.7% are Afrikaans speakers, and that only 20.2% is English. And yet I am here in a standing committee accused of speaking a language that Honorable Barnes and others don't understand, which is very strange. But be that as it may, this committee will make recommendations to the minister in this regard to make sure that Afrikaans is not becoming the bogeyman in the Western Cape. Every time somebody feels like attacking, they attack the Afrikaans speakers. That must stop. My language is my language, it's my cultural position. Will the committee investigate this matter and make suitable recommendations how to prevent Afrikaans from being neglected in the Western Cape?
Baie dankie, Agbare Mare, and I want to just correct you there. Nobody prevented you from speaking any language. Member Barnes asked whether translation will be available or is available. And I also want to remind you, Member Mare, that you do know the rules of order very well, as you were a former Premier and a former Minister. These committees, like Parliament, we do have translation services available, and colleagues are invited to speak the language that they are comfortable in. And I think as a Parliament, we're very accommodative to most languages, and we do have translation services available. That just has to be requested ahead of time. But I'm grateful that you've posed that questions, since we are here to look at the appointment of new members of both of these entities. But I'm going to hand over to Ms. Moleleki to answer those two questions.
The first question, Chairperson, is for Member Brinkhuis. Member Brinkhuis, the members are not full-time members. They are all part-time. They attend 4 meetings only per year, and that is the 4 plenary meeting subdirectorate. We also give the committee an opportunity to meet with the minister, of which the HOD and now the acting HOD and officials are part of that meeting, so that the minister could have another opportunity apart from just written correspondence, meet with the members so that the members can then convey any recommendations or concerns, etc., to the minister. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moleleki, and thank you to all of your colleagues for joining us as well today, and for briefing this committee on not just the important role that both of these entities play, but also on the process that we are about to commence to advertise the vacancies to constitute these committees. I see 2 hands. I see one from the Deputy Chairperson, Mr. Jama, and then I also see another hand. Mr. Jama, would you?
Yes, Chair. So I'm sorry, I just forgot also to mention that also in the department we have a forthcoming publication on date script, which is an Afrikaans journal, but also published in English, where we map out the close relationship between isiXhosa and the Khoisan, and the synergy also between the folklore of these languages in Afrikaans and isiXhosa as well, to map out the historical relationship of these communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We would certainly appreciate if that publication could be shared with this committee as well. And then I see another hand, Mr. or Ms. Nyembezi.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I do want to also draw the attention of the committee to the annual report of the period past, in which in the chairperson's forward it was mentioned that while we welcome the initiatives by various government departments to empower all the people of the Western Cape through language, as well as to enhance human dignity through mutual respect of language and promotion of multilingualism, we urge the legislature to note the conduct of many institutions that have fallen short in their programs to comply with the statutory obligations under the Language Act. And then in the report, we're saying is it demonstrates the concerted effort to comply with the Act and thereby enhance social inclusion, because that will require more extensive action. So in respect to what the Honorable Murray was raising, I think the approach of the Language Committee has been that which promotes language as a human rights issue, so that we can have that mutual respect for the use of language and to empower the people concerned, so that the usage of this language is not something that is seen as elitist. It is not seen as something that is exclusionary, but it should be something that brings us all into the common space as the citizens of this province. But also in terms of what the legislature is required to do by way of compliance. For example, the inclusion and the making available of translators. As a matter of the services do not have to go an extra mile in terms of completing the forms or whatever administrative hurdles in order to be provided with the service. It's supposed to happen seamlessly in the legislature as well as in other government departments that provide the service. So the challenge is there in terms of what we had put in the annual report. Some of these challenges will also be enunciated in the annual report coming, and we are being urged, all of us, to lead by example in the manner in which we implement the legislation and the policy to make the language accessible. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, sir. I think it would be interesting to see whether in the coming annual report, whether the committee takes into consideration the impact of COVID-19 as well on accessibility, because I think one of the challenges we have is that it is very difficult to have translation when you've got these online meetings, because many of our traditional and indigenous South African languages are not available on many of these online platforms. But I'm now going to ask Ms. Moleleki if there are any closing remarks that you would like to make as well, as we've had the two colleagues from the department as well as the deputy chair make some concluding remarks. Ms. Moleleki, if there's any concluding remarks that you would like to make, and then I'll excuse the officials and guests joining us, and the members of the committee will stay behind for us to do our housekeeping.
Chairperson, from the department side, and I want to take the liberty to say from the public entity side, we want to thank you for inviting us to legislation. I am well aware that you conversant on the legislative aspect, and therefore we are thankful for that opportunity. And just to mention that the current term of the Commission, the Western Cape Cultural Commission and the Western Cape Cultural, the Western Cape Cultural Commission, the Western Cape Language Committee will end on the 30th of October, and then the new members must commence from
Chair, but perhaps I just have one question. I've seen the advertisement. What I wanted to know is, when are we planning to do the advertisement?
That is up to us to decide. The proposal on the table from my side would be that we do it as soon as possible. I think we should also, perhaps my proposal would be that we empower our chairperson as well as our very capable procedural officer, Mr. Wasim Matthews, to work out a plan for which dates we can advertise, bearing in mind that we advertise across a wider range as possible of print, online, as well as broadcast media, and that, as is practice for this committee, we also use the reach that we have by making sure that we send it to all of the Cape Access Centres, municipal managers, mayors, speakers, to all of the Department of Cultural Affairs facilities, as well as all the organizations that are affiliated with this department, as well as the entities, the Western Cape Cultural Commission, as well as the Western Cape Language Committee. So we follow that process of making sure that we advertise as wide as possible. So that would be my proposal.
I support that proposal, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Member Van Voorgel.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Porter. So members, what we will then do is, in terms of advertising and working out a draft plan for this committee to advertise the vacancies and also develop a plan of action for the advertisement, we will empower our chairperson, Member Allen, and our very capable procedural officer, Mr. Matthews, to work out that plan, bearing in mind that every newspaper has a different publishing schedule. And we'll also do we'll ask the chairperson to do some radio blitzes and use social media. What we then also need to do, members, is, and Wasim, you might need to give me some guidance here, is to decide on a date, finalize shortlist. I think we might have to consult the parliamentary program as well, given
the CV is nowhere near what the man is capable or woman is capable of doing. And after I've seen their CVs and we interview them, I know Ibrahim Rasool told me once, he said, I couldn't believe this is the man whose CV I read, because the person in front of us, he didn't have any knowledge of what's going on, but his CV says he knows all these things with people who make themselves available and not just a piece of paper.
Thank you very much for that view, Member Murray. Are there any other views from members?
The less time there is to re-advertise or to reconsider. So that is something that the committee must just keep in mind, which is one of the reasons why we pushed for this meeting to be now, because I know normally it is in October where these entities, the terms of office expire. So between myself and the chairperson, we can look to have it advertised as soon as possible. And then when the committee has another chance to meet, and then just sort of take it from there. Like you also said, in terms of the CV, some type of participation in a big book. Not quite that extreme, but a lot of the times the CVs are just, it's unnecessary, some of the things that are in there. It's obviously up to the committee, because these forms
and local government facilities in the Western Cape, making sure that it reaches a wide audience. and that we also ask the chairperson and the procedural officer to look at turning the current nomination form, which is just under six pages, turning that into a streamlined form that also includes a digital component, so that we have an online application form, either using Google Forms or another form system, whichever WCPP uses, as well as making a print form available, and that we perhaps consider limiting the pages on the CVs that people can submit, to asking people to give us an abridged CV of 3 pages. Full that the members of this committee and the members of parliament are in the 5th industrial and technological revolution. I support that idea, and I'd like to amend that.
To be made of the people serving on this committee, on this cultural council. So I would say that only members of this committee should be given a script like
that came out of our meeting today that you would like us to note. Before I take Member Murray, I see Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Chairperson. The one was a request for information on the details of the current board. I assume it probably would be for both entities then, because this was made during the first presentation. Details of the current board or commission or committee, including the geographical spread of the current board members and the qualifications.
Okay, we've got that one noted. Member Murray, do you have any additional ones that you'd like to add? Agbara Murray, ons kan nie hoor nie.
Ek het nie gehoor iets met my naam genoem nie. I want to say that my constituency, which I represent, is 90% Afrikaans speaking. Others here on this committee might be 90% English speaking or Xhosa speaking. I would like this committee to seriously consider that each member here should be allowed to speak the language of his choice, because he is not only addressing this committee members, he's addressing thousands of people listening into this on YouTube and otherwise. And it's unfair to expect me to address my constituency in a language they don't understand, and they consider me not to be representing them, because I speak in a language which is not their home language. And I want to make a serious case here that each member, as far as possible, should be allowed to speak the language of his choice. If he speaks a language and he knows the majority of the people that look up to him as a leader don't understand him, it will be his or her downfall. But that we can't take away that freedom of speech, of choice of language away, if choice of language is constitutionally enshrined in the Western Cape's Constitution. So I make serious objections to the fact that I might be forced to speak English, knowing that my constituency is 90% Afrikaans. So I want to appeal to this committee to give me that leeway to choose, not all the time, but on certain issues, to choose the language in which I wish to address not only this committee, but it's being broadcast to thousands of others who might be listening, and they might not understand what I'm saying.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murray. I think as is practice, we all speak in the language that we are comfortable with and that we'd like to speak in, and you are welcome to speak in any language that you feel comfortable with, that is understood by the people of the Western Cape. Certainly, I've never experienced anybody being told they cannot speak a specific language, and I think we switch between English, Afrikaans, and isiXhosa quite comfortably in this parliament. So I'd encourage us to continue doing that and to speak in the language that we prefer. And I also think that as a committee, we must also accept when people choose to answer us in a language that they prefer. But I do think that we need to maybe consider for this committee specifically, if members do feel that we need a translation, we must just request that ahead of time. And my advice would be that you alert the chairperson to that, because that will need to be arranged specifically on the Microsoft Teams platform. Colleague, since there are no other resolutions, we will now move on to the consideration of the following draft documents, which Mr. Matthews, will you be flighting these documents, or shall we ask members to look at their screens? There we go, it's already up. We've got the draft minutes of the meeting of the 15th of March, meeting conducted via Microsoft Teams on the Museum's Ordinance Amendment Bill. I'm now tabling page 1, which deals with the attendance. Please check that you were there. We'll now move on to page 2 of March. I see none. May we have a proposer, please?
I propose that we adopt, Chair.
Thank you very much. And may we have a seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Baie dankie Agbar Barnes and Nkosi Kakhulu. We'll now move on to the minutes of the meeting of the 24th of March. And that was a public hearing, and the first page deals with attendance. If you could please check your name. I'm now tabling page 1, page 2, page 2 deals with the agreement of the clauses. Colleagues, are there any amendments or additions that you'd like to make to the minutes that have just been tabled? I see none. May we have a proposer for the minutes of the 24th of March?
I propose.
I'll second Member Murray.
Thank you very much. Proposed by Member Murray, seconded by Member Botha. Colleagues, I'm now going to table the draft oversight report to the Genadendal Mission Museum. That was a visit that you all conducted to the Genadendal Museum. Now tabling page 1, page 2, and we've scrolled down to page 3. Page 3 deals with the tour as well as the resolutions. Now we're tabling the final page. Are there any amendments or additions that colleagues would like to make?
Chair, I'm not sure. I didn't see my name unless I was really blind now. Can you just quickly go up?
Your name is there.
Okay. No, I just wanted to double check that.
Oh, there we go. Member Barnes is there. May we please have a proposer for the adoption of this report?
It's only Members Barnes and Philander.
There we go. It's proposed by Member Barnes and Member Philander.
Seconded, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Member Philander. Colleagues, we're now going to table the draft quarterly reports for April to June 2020. There we go. And I'm also going to ask that we table the quarterly report for July to September 2020, like that as well. Wasim, are we able to flight all of them at the same time and then adopt them as a group?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. So we've got the quarterly report from July to September 2020. Now page 1. You can see all the attendance ticks there. We're all very good students in this committee. And colleagues, we're then going to table the quarterly reports from October to December 2020. Tabled page 1, 2, 3, and then the final page deals with the financials. Colleagues, may I ask that we have a proposer and a seconder for the adoption of the quarterly reports for April to June, and then July to September, and then October to December 2020.
Chair, I propose that we adopt in that format.
Thank you very much, Member Botha. May we have a seconder?
Seconded, Chair.
Seconded by Member Barnes. Colleagues, the last quarterly report that we will flight is the quarter from January to March 2021. On your screen, you've got page 2, which deals with the attendance. Page 3. Page 3 deals with the financials, and then page 4 has the signature of the chairperson and the procedural officer and the other colleagues in Parliament. May I have a proposer?
I propose, Chair.
Proposed by Member Botha. A seconder? Seconded by Member Philander. Is that correct, Member Philander?
That's correct, Chair.
Thank you very much. Collega's, is daar enige ander insette wat u wil maak voor ons afsluit? Mevrou Windvogel, agbare Windvogel.
Dankie voorsitter. Voorsitter, myne is net 'n klein 'n concern of wat ek het. Ek wil net weet hoekom neem dit vir ons so lank om reports te adopt of minutes to adopt 5-6 months. I just want to know why. Thank you, Chair.
Member Windvogel, I don't have the answer to that. As you know, in social development, we do things slightly differently. But Mr. Matthews, if you could take note of that and ask the chairperson to respond to that. And I think as members, we must maybe just ask and put regular items on the agenda for this committee as well. Make sure that we meet more regularly.
Chairperson.
Is that Member Barnes that I just heard?
No, it's me. It's Mr. It's not Member Barnes, it's Member Marie.
Sorry, Member Marie, please go ahead. I saw Member Barnes' hand was flashing on the screen. Sorry, Member Marie, please go ahead, and then I'll go over to Member Barnes.
Thank you. I want to let members please consider the possibility that we invite the Khoisan leaders onto a platform like this so we can hear from them, from Griqua to Korana to Khoi to Esokwa, what is it that they expect of us as a Cultural Affairs Committee? How can we be of assistance to them in preserving their culture, their language? Because I think there is a need for direct discussions with these leaders. We have the traditional leaders in Khoisan Bill. We have the Trankra Act, which now says they want to give land to these people. in terms of the Trust Act, but these people are left in the dark, and I think we must become more proactive as a committee to engage with these groups, either on a one-on-one basis, each cultural group separately. It would be preferable so that we can represent these people the way they want to be represented, full knowledge of their needs and desires. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Murray. Mr. Matthews, if you could take note of that and perhaps add that to the committee's draft program for discussion at the next committee. Member Barnes, my apology for mistaking you earlier for Member Murray.
Okay, no, Chair. The thing is that I made a mistake earlier. I forgot to tender an apology for Member Kama. I hope it's not too late. His grandfather passed on this morning. I was supposed already at the introduction to make an apology for him. I just remembered as we are closing off. Apologies for that, Chair.
Thank you very much. That apology was noted by the chair, I think, as well, in the conversation that I had with him. But our condolences to Member Kama during this difficult time, and certainly will send him messages also of support. But please, if you do speak to him, pass that on.
We'll do so, Chair.
Collega's, baie dankie vir julle tyd vanoggend en ek hoop dat ons weer vir julle sal sien op 'n ander koue oggend, because we will meet again in winter. And I want to encourage you all to please stay safe and please practice social distancing. We are in the grips of the third wave of the coronavirus, and I would like to see you all safe and sound again in the chambers one day soon. So please enjoy your morning, the rest of your morning, and also stay warm wherever you are. Have a wonderful day and week. This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank
You
you,
were
Chair.
very professional, very professional.
Thank you to you, Mama Marie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye.